Well, the history is very interesting. It was published in 1633 after he died, and it immediately became very, very popular among all readership groups across the range from, for instance, when England was divided in the Civil War not long afterwards, King Charles I read the poems when he was in prison awaiting execution, but meanwhile the chaplain to Oliver Cromwell also recommended Herbert's poems for holy reading, and he was very popular. He was much imitated, widely read all through the 17th century, and as it went into a period when that kind of poetry went out of fashion, Herbert stayed in fashion because his poems were used as hymns, and they've been sung in churches ever since, and they still are. And then in the 19th century they became much praised by Coleridge and other romantic writers, and since then they've been immensely popular again. They've influenced people like Emily Dickinson, T.S. Eliot, Seamus Heaney, R.S. Thomas, Simone Weil, the French writer, hugely influential to writers and thinkers and many, many ordinary readers as well. These are devotional poems, so they're poems about the relationship between the individual and God, but they are not what I would call heavily religious poems, in the sense that they don't deal really with doctrine. They deal with human experience, which is what makes them so accessible, I think, to people of all faiths and none, because they're love poems really to God, and so they have all the range of feelings. And what I think has made them accessible over the years is that he has a voice rather like the psalmist. He speaks for everyone. There are many different kind of characters or personae in the poems, the mistaken person and the cross person, but they're all moods that we recognise and that people can find, they can identify with them. And I think that's contributed to their popularity. He has this wonderful capacity to combine simplicity and accessibility, directness, with great rhetorical sophistication, beautifully organised and modelled stanzas. He had a different stanza form for almost every poem. So he was a great rhetorician. He was the public orator of Cambridge University, so one of the best rhetoricians of his generation. But he wears it lightly, makes it seem as if you can get directly into the poems, but then you find there are multiple meanings, there are puns, so all kinds of depths of echoing of the Bible and so on. So it's that combination of the simple and the complex which appeals to me especially, but also I think the musicality of them. He was a great musician, and they are lyrics with a lyrical quality, with a kind of music to them. So I think there's a beauty to his writing, not only in the ideas and the emotions, but also simply technically in the lyrical beauty. They're exquisite poems. It was very hard to choose. In fact, it was even hard to narrow them down to 100 for the collection. But I think my favourite, above all, is the very last one. He's a poet of very powerful beginnings, leaps immediately into conversation at the beginning of the poems. I think even better at endings. And this is the very last poem of the lyric sequence, and it ends with utter simplicity. He's being welcomed by God, and he finds he's unworthy. Love is God welcoming him, but he's pulling back. And eventually, in the very last line, he gives in. It's called Love. It's the third poem of his, but called Love. Love bade me welcome, yet my soul drew back, guilty of dust and sin. But quick-eyed love, observing me grow slack from my first entrance in, sweetly questioning if I lacked anything. A guest, I answered, worthy to be here. Love said, you shall be he. I, the unkind, ungrateful? Ah, my dear, I cannot look on thee. Love took my hand and smiling did reply, who made the eyes but I? Truth, Lord, but I have marred them. Let my shame go where it doth deserve. And know you not, says Love, who bore the blame? My dear, then I will serve. You must sit down, says Love, and taste my meat. So I did sit and eat.